To the people of the Appalachian Mountains, are the stories true? What are your paranormal experiences? As someone who lives in a very remote area within the Appalachian Mountains, yes, the stories are true. I'm a 35-year-old man, and I inherited my cabin from my grandpa when he died 5 years ago. Within 2 days of living there, I had already heard the whistling. 5 years later, I've seen strange faces outside of my windows at night, heard screams, seen silhouettes of tall, lanky figures. I've never been too close to them, but I've definitely seen things that would have likely made me go missing if I was outside at the time. My most recent experience was last night, when I heard scratching on the living room window while I was watching TV. By this time, I knew just to ignore it all because it's safer that way. This scratching lasted 15 minutes at least. Then eventually, as time went on, I would start to hear something with very raspy, almost a staticky voice. It almost reminded me of TV static, but I can tell what it was saying very clearly. It was saying my name, over and over. I continued to ignore it and watch TV until about midnight when I heard whatever it was walking away. I live in the area. During hunting season, I typically walk deep into the woods without a flashlight at around 4 a.m. The scariest things I've encountered are all natural wildlife. Every now and again, I'll see an animal I've never seen before, and that can get anxiety up there for sure. 2 summers ago, while hiking, I encountered a fisher. The fisher I saw was like a cross between a weasel and a bear. It was huge, even for a fisher. I had never even known we had them, or such an animal existed. I didn't know what I was looking at, and that fucking thing was fast. Turns out they are effective killers too, just not really prone to attacking humans. You can bet your house that if some freaky shit was happening in these woods, I wouldn't be a hunter, let alone walking a few miles into the forest in a pitch-black setting. I will say this though, every now and again something will happen during these hunts that will scare the shit out of me for a moment or two. For instance, last season I was waiting to get out of my truck, didn't even enter the woods yet, and something slapped my passenger side of my truck. It was around 4 a.m., it wasn't a tree branch falling, but whatever it was had a loud thud sound, not a solid crack like a tree branch. I got out and investigated with my rifle in hand, then walked into the woods when I found nothing. I visited Point Pleasant in the Shenandoah River. Point Pleasant seemed like a normal little town, but my Weimaraner, who goes everywhere with me, refused to get out of the car. After a 3-hour drive, she got out of the car to pee and then immediately wanted to get back in. It was a warm, sunny day at the time. I toured the downtown and Mothman exhibit alone. I felt bad about leaving her in the car, so on the way out of town, I stopped at a local riverside park so that she could run around before the long drive home. Again, she absolutely refused to get out of the car. This has never happened before or since. Later, we drove to check out the notorious TNT bunkers. It was just after sundown, and again, my dog got out to pee and immediately wanted back into the car. I checked out the TNT bunker and was totally unimpressed. Walking back to my car, I clicked my remote to turn off the car alarm. When I turned my key in ignition, the car totally shut down. I popped the hood to investigate and immediately noticed that one of my leads on the car battery had popped off. I thought maybe someone could have been in the woods messing with people, but if someone intentionally tried to disconnect my battery, I figured that it would have set off the car alarm. This has never happened to me anywhere else. As a physician trained in addiction treatment, I can vouch for the area having a big problem with opioids and methamphetamine. The latter causes paranoid hallucinations, which I think can explain a lot of the crazy stories from locals. To differentiate between legit spooky stories and drug-related delusions, ask for specific details or proof. Note, I will say they aren't intentionally lying to you. They actually believe what they said, which is what makes their story so convincing. I.e., there's goblins in those caves, but I never bothered to snap a pic of them with my phone, is probably a delusion. If they say, I saw a tall police officer with a mustache drag an unconscious bloody female into the woods, I would be inclined to believe them and probably wouldn't stick around to ask more questions. I'm with you 100%. The only slight, and I mean slight, disagreement I would have is my company is religious about random drug tests, and I mean random. The people that work for and with me swear on Mothman. We are taking doctorates in biochemistry, chemistry, and physics. As my company is about as evil as it gets, I won't give the name, but just use the search terms Washingtonville, WV, Teflon, and cancer. Yeah, I don't think the Mothman thing is totally bogus. In the UK, they have something called the Owl Man, which has a similar appearance and behavior pattern. So I think this is a genuine, universal human experience people are having. It doesn't have to have supernatural explanation, though. Our eyes only see 1% of the light energy around us. So, as John Keel said, I think we share this planet with other living things we can only see by accident. Loosely quoted from memory. There was also a lot of secret military research going on in Point Pleasant during the Mothman era. And the TNT area is totally poisoned by all the TNT runoff, plus chemicals from other companies leaking into the area. This is likely having unpredictable effects on genetics and human brains in the area. By the way, I love how they zoned off the TNT area as a bird sanctuary, rather than post a big skull and crossbones to keep humans from living there. There is 100% weird things that go on. Most people will ignore you or quickly move on when you talk about them, especially from outside the South. Everything from drugs to old-fashioned superstitions is blamed, instead of believing people who have lived most of their lives in a place where they say something strange has happened. People I love and trust have told me that there is bad energy in certain places, and that strange things happen in the woods sometimes. A few family members have ghost stories, and since I've shared this story, some people have told me theirs. Last spring, something in the woods was imitating my neighbor's baby. It sounded spot on, and I legit thought it was in the woods. I got halfway to the tree line to check, and I stopped and wondered why my neighbor's baby would just be crying alone in the woods just behind the tree line. I backed up to my house and started recording the sound. After a minute or two of the crying stopping and starting again, something in the same spot behind the trees started loudly whistling and shaking the tree where the sound was coming from. This was happening at the same time as the baby noises. Two things were behind the tree line. After that happened, I called my grandmother to come out and listen too. The porch door is very old and loud, and when she opened it, all sounds stopped, and there was a big shake from the tree where the sounds were coming. Then, nothing. Honestly, I thought I had an episode till I checked my phone and made sure I recorded the noises and that other people could hear them. This happened during the evening in northern South Carolina, near the foothills of Appalachia. Foxes are everywhere in Appalachia and sound like babies screaming. It is terrifying. Do they sound consistent for 5+ minutes and then jump around on tree limbs? If so, it might be those. But it would have to be a big fox to shake the tree like that. Let's just hear the recordings then, or are they somehow gone or missing? The user never posted the audio file. In the fog is where strange shit happens. I remember driving from Charleston to Beckley one morning. I never listened to music or anything, it wasn't my thing. I remember one morning, I realized that everything around me went quiet. I couldn't hear the sound of the engine, other traffic, or anything. One hand moved off the steering wheel to touch my ear. I was trying to figure out what went wrong when, out of the corner of my eye, I saw something huge. Time seemed to slow down. It was a big rig, and there was a man in the driver's seat screaming at me, panicking and pulling on his air horn pull cord to alert me that I was on the wrong side of the road. Still couldn't hear anything, but I became aware of two things. The fog was overwhelming us, creeping up around both vehicles, and I was slowly drifting over into his lane, in essence running him off the road. I immediately pumped my brakes, allowing him to surge forward, and slowly moved back to the left of the two-lane road we were on. In the blink of an eye, the fog pulled back. I had the strangest feeling of calm and thought I heard the distant sound of a native voice singing a mournful song on the wind. That's questionable. Later on, I looked up that road I was on, and it was the Paint Creek Scenic Trail, a two-lane road that offers an alternate route between Charleston and Beckley, West Virginia, passing near Paint Creek. It has smooth pavement and interesting turns, which is probably how I got lost in the fog and ended up on the wrong side of the road. The trail allows for multiple entry and exit points from the West Virginia Turnpike. Paint Creek was named from the deposits of ochre found there, which the Native Americans used for body painting. They also used it to mark trees to designate tribal boundaries. Yes, there is a tribal burial ground, specifically the Grave Creek Mound near Paint Creek. The city that currently seems to most accurately represent Appalachia is Parkersburg, West Virginia. I work for a company that has a facility near Parkersburg, and this is what I've heard and encountered. It is considered one of the most haunted cities in the US. On quiet nights, and they are all pretty damn quiet, you can seemingly hear what sounds like a Civil War battle all around you. I've heard it personally, and I've rationalized it as part heavy train traffic in the area, part my own mind adding things I really didn't hear, but a group of 5 to 10 people hearing the same thing at the same time? Odd, but again, explainable. The opioid and meth epidemic is close to the top of the scale in Parkersburg. There are days and nights where it looks like The Walking Dead. And then there are the nights where you won't see a soul on the streets. Finally, and this one I still can't wrap my head around, many of the locals genuinely, with full throats, believe in Mothman. They schedule family parties and such around when the Mothman isn't feeding in the area, in order to protect pets and small children. Now, they haven't lost a small child in forever, but pets go missing all the time. They blame Mothman. I blame the numerous coyotes that can be seen at all times of the day and night. Parkersburg is an odd place, with an unusual local hero to boot. Everything about the place is just a little off. I too live in a southern city in the US and personally encountered the Civil War sounds. We were around 17 to 18, and a group of my friends and I went to drink beer and build a campfire in the woods on the skirts of my city. The place where we were at did not have any houses or anybody around. It was very remote. Well, it was almost like somebody hit play on a movie. We started hearing like march calls and general chatter all around. It sounded like you were close to a festival or something. It lasted a very long time. There was no mistaking it. You could even hear different people call out different things. I know this sounds batshit crazy, but this 100% happened and caused like 6 of us to load up and haul ass after a while. At one point, we were all loaded up in the truck and just sitting there in disbelief, sounding like a bunch of babies. We went back the next morning and walked a couple miles through the woods, and we couldn't find campsites or anything to show that maybe some people walked very deep in the woods and were watching a movie. This was one of the most unbelievable and reality-breaking things I have ever encountered. Have you heard them marching into battle? In Gettysburg, they can hear cannon fire at night. Yeah, it sounds like an ongoing battle. Yelling, loud bangs in the distance, metal striking metal as if swords were being used. Again, it could be ambient noise due to the high volume of trains in the area, but it feels different, if that makes any sense. Imagine 5 grown men standing in the parking lot of a hotel and all hearing the same things and feeling like it's surrounding you. Trains and cars, plus mountains and echoes, seem plausible, but it just didn't feel that way. Personally, I don't subscribe to paranormal activity. However, there used to be a camp outside of Sylva, North Carolina on the Tuckasegee River. It had been bought by a lady who had sold several daycare facilities where I'd lived in Jacksonville, Florida. She'd retired there. In the very early 80s, I'd attended a different daycare over the summer in Jacksonville, and each year they'd take a small group of kids up to the camp outside of Sylva and use it as a base of operations as they spent the week tubing and sightseeing the Smokies. One summer, I went along. I'm pretty sure the year was 1981. Because we camped along the edge of the river, we'd often tube there for about a mile and then walk back to camp, rolling our truck tire inner tubes along the old abandoned asphalt road that nature had been reclaiming over the years. On our last night in camp, we walked along the asphalt road after sundown to the tubing takeout spot on the river. We sat around a fire that some kayakers had left smoldering. Other than the smoldering coals, there was no light in the darkness we were sitting in. After a while, the adult supervising the trip began to tell us a story. Years ago, on the other side of the river, immediately from where we were sitting, there had lived an elderly man who owned all the land that side of the mountain. That mountain land was abandoned and left to nature now, but years ago, every day that old man would walk down the mountain from his cabin in the darkness of early morning, crossing railroad tracks obscured from our view by the dense forest, only to spend a few hours fishing in the Tuckasegee River. One morning, according to the story, the old man was heading down the mountain, and for one reason or another, in the dark he did not notice the train heading along the tracks up there. Realizing he'd just hit the old man, the conductor stopped the train and walked the length of the track back to where he expected to find the old man's remains, but there was no trace of the man. The conductor resumed his travel and alerted authorities. When friends were notified, they went to the old man's house to check for him. There was no trace of the old man in the cabin, but they noticed his cherished fishing poles were missing, so they went down to the river. There, they were surprised to find the poles stuck in the riverside, baited, and cast in the river. Alarmed, the friends took the fishing poles with them and left for town, and as the story goes, they parked somewhere in the town while running errands. When they came back to the car, the fishing poles were gone. The next time the friends went back to the old man's place, they found the same fishing poles baited and cast into the river in the same spot. Well, that was sort of spooky to hear as a kid sitting there in the pitch black darkness. So dark we couldn't see the other side of the mountain just in front of us, just beyond the rushing rapids of the Tuckasegee. But then the trip supervisor finished the story by saying, "Every so often, people around here say that they see the ghost of the old man come walking slowly along the railroad tracks in the darkness, holding a ghost light that sways back and forth to warn people not to get caught along the tracks. And I'll be fucked if at that exact moment, a light didn't appear halfway up the mountain in the pitch black, slowly making its way in a line across the mountain." At some point, someone said, "What is that light?" We left immediately. Years later, one summer during college, I worked as a counselor at that day camp in Jacksonville, and the adult supervisor from all those years ago that told that story happened to come by for a visit. I was grown then. He didn't recognize me when I said hello. I just asked him how he managed to coordinate someone being up on those train tracks at that exact time to walk a line across the tracks. And he replied that he hadn't coordinated anything. He'd been convinced all this time that he'd seen that old man's ghost. I live in a cabin adjacent to the Cherokee National Forest. This whole side of the mountain where I live used to belong to one family. Slowly, each generation has sold off portions of the property to where now the remaining generations are at the foothills of where I live. I was told the grandmother was a healer. The last two women who lived in the house, one a nurse and the other a self-proclaimed witch. That's the one we bought the house from. She told me she had brought Max the Skull here and had a drum circle. I don't know. Neighbors reported ceremonial activity. No matter. When I came to this house, I immediately loved it. I'm a nurse with witchy tendencies myself, but the witchy side has come to the surface since I lived here. The Appalachian Mountains are riddled with lore for a good reason. What I've found is that your intentions better be good and clear. I've definitely become more mindful and purposeful, and definitely believe in the power that surrounds me. I have no doubt sinister things happen, but with that being said, I feel protected in these mountains, but I also have a deep respect and connection to them. This isn't a place for people to come and piss in the wind, so to speak, but a place for deep, contemplative thought and a call to help for those in need. It's a retreat into nature, and with that, an acknowledgement that we're all in this world together. This was Dante Calvino. Let me know what you thought of the format for these stories, or if you have one of your own to tell. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe for more mystery every week.